Hey guys, everything new under the sun. Here's an interesting one for all the preppers out there. For all those waiting for some major event to happen from the sun to take out the electrical grid, to trigger a cascade of events which leads to financial, economic collapse and a bad back scenario in the United States. I think it's absolutely a possibility. And here is an article from zerohedge.com describing a scenario that apparently is planned for. They know about this or expecting this. Let's read what it says. Solar storms present danger of blackouts from major East Coast cities. The largest solar storm in history struck in 1859, and this was the big grid collapse, the Carrington event of 1859. And the auroras could be seen across the globe, but a solar storm of that magnitude today would cause devastating blackouts in major cities on the East Coast of the United States. Interesting that this would be directed at the East Coast. Well, an upcoming report by the U.S. Geological Survey warns that a region of the eastern seaboard will be particularly vulnerable to devastating blackouts. Interesting that the eastern seaboard is vulnerable to this, because we know the western seaboard is vulnerable to volcanoes and earthquakes and all these sorts of things. And you never thought the eastern seaboard was vulnerable to much more than hurricanes. Apparently they are to a solar storm and a grid down situation. So the eastern seaboard will be particularly vulnerable to devastating blackouts in the event of a solar storm, thanks to rocks beneath the surface. Interestingly, so God has designed the earth so that the earth and He is able to use the earth to basically fulfill His purposes. And this may or may not be wrath, but I think God has designed the earth in such a way that specific areas will be ready for destruction at certain times, and certainly, if not destruction, then certainly a massive warning from the Lord. It's widely believed that the type of geomagnetic storm capable of wiping out the grid happens once every century, but a worst-case scenario might result in widespread blackouts that could last for months. This is coming from the U.S. Geological Survey. They think the eastern seaboard is particularly vulnerable to this. According to Bloomberg, the soon-to-be-released report found a 300-million-year-old rock, 300 million years, maybe 3,000 years old, maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000 year old, not 300 million year old. That makes no sense. And that's based on guesses and assumptions. That's not based on any sort of dating technique that they've proven. But they say it's found 300 million year old rock beneath the surface of the eastern seaboard, and it could amplify the next big solar storm. The makeup of this rock wouldn't allow the solar energy to go through it, and would instead ricochet it back up to the surface, basically increasing, doubling the impacts in this region, the report also said. So I don't know why that wouldn't also apply to the mountainous regions on the west, but there you go. This isn't the only problem facing those who live on the East Coast, it says. According to the USGS research geophysicist and study lead author Jeffrey Love, the eastern seaboard is at risk for blackouts not only due to its abundance of insulating rocks, but also due to the proximity to the North Pole, where intense solar activity may strike. It's an active problem that a lot of people are trying to solve and understand, Space Weather Prediction Center scientist Christopher Bulk told Bloomberg. Love told Bloomberg that the new report particularly important because the mid-Atlantic and northeast hadn't been previously studied in depth with regard to how its geology would impact solar storms. A study in 2016 reported that the upper Midwest is a region that faces the highest threat from geomagnetic storms. Here's a suggestion by the article writer about how to prepare. The best way to prepare for a blackout is to have some extra water and food, just in case. You could also consider some heavy blankets in case the grid goes down in winter, and keeping lanterns or candles on hand. And that's good advice for those who are preparing for the eventualities, I think, that are coming. The trouble that's coming on the earth as the earth is groaning. The birth pains are happening and increasing in frequency and intensity. The sun is spooling up to burn men with great heat, as it says in the last days. I think that's what's happening. We're in a solar minimum right now, but I think that's going to take off in the not too distant future, and it says in the Bible that men's skin will burn with the heat of the sun in the last days as God winds up the earth to burn all the things that are existing from man over the last 6,000 years. He's going to burn it with fire. He's going to cleanse the earth with fire at the end. He's going to destroy it completely, as he did in the beginning, or the first time rather, with Noah's flood. With water he destroyed the earth. The second time he's going to destroy it with fire and brimstone, effectively, burn it with fire. And the sun's going to help in that situation. And so the sun's spooling up for that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I think this is very potential. I think this is coming down the pipe. We need to be prepared for it. This may happen during the 7-year tribulation. And the Christians may be around for this. I'm beginning to agree with the point of view that the rapture does not occur prior to the 7-year tribulation. I hope it does. It'd be great if it does. But if it doesn't, we need to be wise like Joseph was in the Bible. For 7 good years, he stored up food in Egypt so that he could be prepared for the 7 bad years, which he got knowledge of in the dream that he got from God. And indeed, 7 bad years came, and they ate the food that he stored up for 7 good years. So we are in the 7 good years right now. We are in the second half of the 7 good years, I believe. I believe we have less than 3 years left before the start of the 7-year tribulation. That will be the 7 bad years, and you need to be prepared. You need to be wise. God give us a brain. On top of that, there's going to be great persecution coming, and you need to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, because ultimately you're going to die, whether you're put to death because of your faith in Jesus Christ, or whether you simply die because of the heat or famines or the pestilences coming upon the earth, all the persecution and the tribulation that's coming upon the earth. You may die just because of that. So you need to have your heart prepared first. On top of that, you need to be prepared with food and water and things that will help your family survive through this, should you not be persecuted to death effectively. And we may see a lot of this stuff happen prior to the 7-year tribulation as well. So you need to be prepared on all sides for the trouble that's coming. We know the trouble is coming, and we know that God will also provide if we are following Him and His children. He's going to provide, but He gives us a brain and wisdom to also be prepared for this, just like Joseph in the Bible. I believe you need to use biblical examples. You can't just do nothing and call upon God to feed you. He has done that. He did that for the Israelites. As they wandered for 40 years, He provided food and water. But ultimately, like Joseph, like the story of Joseph in the Bible, being, I believe it was a third in the kingdom in Egypt because he was so wise. Second, third, I'd have to go back and look at that. But anyways, he stored up for 7 good years because he had a prophecy from the Lord. And it turned out to be true. There were 7 bad years coming, very, very bad years. And he was able to feed a lot of people because he listened to God and he used his wisdom and stored up food for the bad times. So be prepared, guys. This stuff is coming down the pipe. I believe this is something that very much fits in with end-time Bible prophecy. We don't know how exactly or when exactly, but I think it would make a lot of sense. As God judges North America for its sinfulness, judges Western nations. I believe the downfall of Western nations is coming quickly, and that's part of an economic collapse, I think, and this all could be part of that group of things which causes calamity in Western nations, leads to them not being spoken of in end-time Bible prophecy, in Ezekiel 38, etc. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there. Be prepared. Know or find Jesus Christ because He's coming back soon, but we're going to see a lot of trouble before that.